This is something that's big and overwhelming and slow and really hard to understand.
It's tough being in the media to tell this story.
Boing, 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 boing.
Welcome to a Boing Boing TV update. I'm Sheni Jardin. Our current Boing Boing guest blogger, Dale Dougherty, wrote a late-night rant last week titled Why CNN Struggles to Cover the Economic Panic. Now, basically, he went into 10 reasons that he feels television is struggling to cover that story, and we caught up with him at his home in Sebastopol to ask why. Dale Dougherty, good morning.
Good morning, Jenny. How are you?
What is it that TV can be and should be doing better in covering this crisis?
I'm looking for a diversity of viewpoints, a diversity of people talking about this, not just the pundits or not just the sort of the Washington folks. It sometimes seems like the stock market's a game that's being played, and we're kind of told that we can play too, meaning fairly and on the same terms. And when you just sort of watch the stock market during this period going up and down, you just feel like there's a game being played by the professionals on Wall Street, and then there's a game that they tell the rest of us how to play it, which is just hold in there, stick it out. Well, they're not holding in there and sticking out. They're obviously selling off, right? So, why don't we sort of, question a little bit about who's doing the selling? Why are they doing it? One of the things that's always irritated me in the financial media is how they talk about the stock market indexes like the weather. They generalize, it's a sunny day, so the stock went up today. Stock market went up. It was news from so-and-so made the stock market go down 200 points. And you kind of go, well, it's got to be a little more complex than that.
Your point, as it seems to me, is that really the way television, CNN is sort of the scapegoat in this post of yours, but the way that television in general is covering the economic crisis points to the failures of television as a news medium, that there is a tendency to go for the charismatic, the sexy, the quick punch, and that this is not a charismatic, sexy, or short-term punch story. This is something that's big and overwhelming and slow and really hard to understand.
It's tough being in the media to tell this story. If I were in their position, I would be scratching my head. We are just confused. We don't quite understand it. We know this matters. I think people feel this story very deeply. There's government putting out proposals to spend hundreds of billions of dollars. And it does look to me like we don't know if this is going to work. On one level, it requires a certain level of expertise to speak about this because it is so big and complex. On the other hand, maybe the expertise really isn't there, or it's something that everyone, the citizen journalists ought to take to a little bit more. Some of these big stories almost shape a new form of media, a new way of doing something, and they represents almost the commitment on the journalist's end to make that story work. And that's what I'm going to be looking for forward from here is, there have to be really intelligent, committed journalists out there who say, this is the biggest story of my career, and I'm going to put everything into it, and I'm going to find the best way to tell it and use all the media that's available to me.
Well, Dale Dougherty, thank you very much for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Jenny. I appreciate it.
After the break, Corey's holiday gift guide, fruit for thought, and the Connecticut teacher charged with exposing kids to online porn in the classroom talks to Boing Boing. 41-year-old Connecticut schoolteacher JULIE AMERO was accused of showing porn to students on a classroom computer that was infected with malware and displayed pop-up windows containing sexual content. Now, last week, she accepted a misdemeanor plea deal to avoid felony charges despite ample proof that she was innocent and that her case was mishandled. The deal allows her to avoid a previously imposed jail sentence, but it means she has to give up her teaching credentials permanently. A forensic report that was never introduced as evidence shows AMERO was not responsible for the infection of porn pop-up windows on the computer in question. There is also evidence that the school district's IT manager, detectives, and prosecutors all misled the court. Boing Boing's Mark Frauenfelder and Boing Boing Gadgets' Rob Biscuits have been covering the case, and we reached out to Julie Amero at her home in Connecticut to talk with her about the outcome.
We had gotten a lawyer, and that was quite the mistake. We paid a lot of money, which we didn't have, and when it came time to go to court, Cochio never did the paperwork for Herb Horner to come into court with his paperwork to prove I was innocent. And he was stumbling around the courtroom, dropping pill bottles on the floor. He couldn't walk 2 feet without falling over. And at that moment, as I looked at the jury, I said, something's going to happen today.
We'll post more audio and text of that conversation on the Boing Boing blog. My colleague Cory Doctorow has been blogging a series of holiday gift lists on Boing Boing. Joel Johnson has contributed, and more are on the way. And finally this week, we leave you with images of the Mumbai terrorist attacks from Flickr user Vinu. A number of our commenters were on the ground there or had loved ones who were in Mumbai. They pointed to Vinu's stream and other sources of first-person eyewitness accounts.